AA6DD, K6YYL.
Good evening, Kim. K6YYL, AA6DD.
Good evening, and let's see, how about talking about, was it jet stream propagation this evening? And by the way, tonight is December 24th, 2017, Christmas Eve. And we're on 50.300 FM, Simplex.
Okay, real good, Kim. Yep, Christmas Eve. And the jet stream and what it has to do with ham radio propagation. Well, it is one of the elements that we believe has to do with the generation of sporadic E clouds up in the sporadic E layer. We've been talking about that aurora is up in the E layer, and that it's created by ionized particles from the sun hitting the outer magnetic field of the Earth and then funneling down to the south and north pole. And once it hits the oxygen of the E region, it ionizes it and starts the wonderful dance of first red colors, and then it gets more energy. It goes up to higher and higher coloration, higher frequency colors like green even. But it's a similar kind of phenomena that you never can see, actually. It helps generate ionization up in the E region, which is elevation of 100 kilometers. You can kind of consider that as average elevation, 100 kilometers, 62 miles. Is wind shear from the most highest part of the jet stream. So it's sort of the upper jet stream that circulates around the Earth. Normally, it wiggles across Alaska and then wiggles across Canada and goes over around Europe and Russia and then back around again, and doesn't dip very far south, at least this upper part of the super jet stream, except this time of the year. And who knows, maybe even Santa Claus takes advantage of that to sail south, huh? But nevertheless, it does start as winter comes on. It first dips down around Chicago and turns and goes back up, and then a little further south and takes in all the Great Lakes, and then a little further south, and eventually it's down there in Oklahoma. Like you say, it goes from so the big S-shaped curve starts to see a big U-turn and goes way south, and then turns and goes back up. Eventually, at about this time of the year and through the first 2 weeks of January, it can run so far south that it will run right along the Rocky Mountains and turn at Mexico City, make a U-turn at Mexico City, and shoot right up the Appalachian Mountains, all the way back into Canada, over Nova Scotia, and back into Europe. And when it's that extreme, we will have sporadic E openings that is getting its energy, a goodly amount of the energy, from this wind shear that's taking place way up in 100 kilometers up in the upper atmosphere. Any questions up to that point?
No, I'm doing good. Go ahead.
Okay. The thing that, when you think about ionized propagation, which includes the D layer at about 40 miles up, and the E layer and the F1 and F2 layer, which starts at around 200 miles and goes to 600 miles. And like I say, there's even an F2 and probably an F3 layer, depending on how you want to count them when they're splitting apart with various kinds of ionization. The energy in them has to come from somewhere to ionize them. In most cases, it's the ultraviolet light from the sun. And as we have discussed last time, it's also the the super high frequency ultraviolet light, as well as X-rays coming off the sun, which are even higher in frequency and even have more energy. And the thing to keep in mind all this time, and what you might even do to just sort of seal it in one's consciousness, is write the capital letter E down, colon, and then a capital letter F down. Now that's actually a sophisticated formula in physics, and what it says, it says energy is proportional to frequency. And Planck, a physicist over 100 years ago now, showed that formula was correct. And so when you think about the energy from the jet stream or from the ionized particles, or wherever the energy may be coming from, realizing that they're proportional. In other words, if I multiply the energy by twice, the frequency that it will affect will multiply by 2. If I divide the energy, it drops in half, the frequency will drop in half. And that is exactly how you can kind of understand what's happening in propagation, that you need a lot of energy to get all the way up to 6 meters because it's a very, very high frequency. It also tells you the angle of the dangle that the thing will refract actually. We call it reflection, but it's really a kind of refraction that takes place, or even a kind of re-radiation actually, when it goes through the cloud and then comes back down the other side. So you can see that means what frequencies are the wind shear most effective on. And when would it affect the most? Well, the lower frequencies. In other words, we don't really recognize it very often, but even down on 20 meters and 40 meters, the wind shear is having an effect on propagation. But the F layer signal is so strong, and F1 and F2 down there, that it tends to wash it all out. But the E region actually we use on 40 meters and 80 quite often, but most people don't realize they're using E region propagation when they just talk 600 miles away. But quite often that's what we use in the middle of the day. It's actually the E region itself. K6YYL, AA6DD.
Okay, very good. Well, I'm gonna have to, of course, again listen to this, many times. So go ahead, doing great. AA6DD, K6YYL, and by the way, I loved your little Santa Claus analogy. So that was pretty cute and good timing, because Santa's out there right now.
Yeah, the jet stream. He has a tailwind all the way. If he's on the jet stream, he's coming down right now over the state of Washington. And who knows? Maybe some of the skids there are creating some sporadic E openings for us on 6. But he's headed south, and he'll come all the way down across Arizona and into Mexico and do a big U-turn at Mexico City and head north along the Appalachian. Because, like I say, he actually will have a tailwind the entire way, all the way up the East Coast. So he can boogie. He can move fast and save gas. There, Kim, go ahead.
Oh, very cute. I love that. AA6DD, K6YYL.
All right. My voice is getting a little froggy here. But let me talk about the other things that affect this time of the year. Sporadic E. We have Bootsy. She got up here on my lap. She wants some attention. My kitty, one of my older kitties, is meteors, and of course we have a meteor shower that happens Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. And so when meteors are falling into the Earth, they get to the E region, and then they start to burn. Well, why is that? Well, the E region is where a very little amount of oxygen up there. So, but it is there, and that's why things can't burn until it gets to that level. It's out there where the hydrogen is. It's not going to burn yet, even though it's flying through the hydrogen and causing a great deal of friction. But it finally hits the E region, and the friction of the objects, either little bitty pieces of sand, or things that are monstrous size objects that are made out of all sorts of material, starts to burn. And of course, that burning pumps a lot of energy into the E region and causes sporadic E. So we have that effect. So that's another thing that adds energy. Energy being proportional to the frequency, we got to get the energy level up enough. So those two things together are probably the most predominant generators of wintertime sporadic E. Of course, if we have enough meteors, it can do it on its own. It can, just shower down on us and on a very continuous rate, like billions of pieces of sand hitting the E region, and then it'll blanket everywhere, and you can have tremendous meteor showers and see the meteors burn and hear 6 meter and 2 meter openings and even 220 openings when there's enough of them coming down. But those are usually in the summer months is when we get the most amount of residual meteors. But we do have in the winter months here around Christmas time a little pickup in the meteor activity as well. So the combination are probably the mainstays of sporadic E generation. In the summer months, we have another element that helps add energy to the entire thing, and that's violent electrical storms on Earth. For years, experts did not think that violent storms that are maybe as high as 6 miles high, that was very electrically active with thunderbolts all over the place. They couldn't imagine that they would affect something 60 miles in the sky. We're talking about way up there. But they were wrong. Hams, we have, since the 1940s, even the late started about 1935, whenever we first got equipment and could build little equipment that could get us on the 5 meter ham band, which was the precursor to 6 meters after World War II. That sporadic E was recognized, that we recognized it. And even at that time, it was correlated with the summer months and with violent electrical storms. And so the correlation with violent electrical storms in the summer months has been building that information and idea for ever since then. But physicists in general did not believe it, did not think there was a correlation, and sort of poo-pooed the idea until about 20 years ago now. And they had some fast satellite photographs that would photography that was very fast, taking snapshots of the Earth. And all of a sudden, they saw them. They saw electrical spikes that went from the top of these violent electrical storms right up to 100 kilometers in the air, right into the E region. And so, they call them spurts and sprites. They have various names for them. Bottom line is we've been correct all these years, and it's so fast the human eyeball can't see it. So pilots and aircraft can't see it. They might sense it and even kind of jerk, but if anything is faster than a 30th of a second, the human eyeball doesn't see it. And these things are faster than that. And it might be right in front of the pilot and just shoot right up, through the aircraft. And they still wouldn't realize what just hit them, except the aircraft would get ionized, but it's all around them. So they're in a Faraday cage and they don't recognize the problem, except they would have radio silence for a while. All of a sudden they couldn't talk on the radio. And wouldn't know why until finally the ionization would would dissipate slowly, and all of a sudden their radios would come back and start working, and they would have no idea what the situation was, causing those sporadic clouds in that spurt that went by them. K6YYL, AA6DD.
AA6DD, K6YYL. Very good. Well, I love this. And I think we had talked about sprites before, I believe, but that's been many years ago now. Go ahead.
K6YYL, AA6DD. Yeah, it's been a long time. Well, Floppy just got up on my other leg, so two of my older female kitties that are from different wild litters, their mamas showed up wild out here. They don't get along. So they're staring at each other and moving their tails in a aggressive manner towards each other, saying, you stay on that leg and I'll stay on this leg. Okay, back to wintertime sporadic key. It is not as prevalent as the summertime stuff because it only has those two sources we know of. And there is no correlation, and every so often somebody thinks they found a correlation with the sunspot cycle and sporadic key. There isn't any, and believe me, I've looked for it for 55 years now and have found no correlation. The only correlation is a negative one. Whenever the K index goes to about 4 or higher, which means the geomagnetic field of the Earth becomes disturbed by a whole bunch of ionization hitting the Earth that causes aurora, it tends to squelch out the generation of sporadic key. So when the K index is high, not that it's impossible to happen, but the amount of sporadic key goes way, way down when it happens to be high. And so the only correlation is negative. Now the reason it's easy to fool oneself is, remember, the sunspot cycle, as I said before, has a huge amount of noise in the system. It is noisy, noisy, noisy beyond belief. So the patterns are very hard to distinguish. That's why we have to do what are called these mathematical averages. The numbers are big mathematical averages. Over a year's period, we average the data because it bops up and down every 24 hours all over the place. And to see a pattern, we have to do the smoothing of the numbers. And so it makes it really, really tough to see a correlation because of the noise problem that you're looking at, statistically speaking. Whereas there may be other things besides those three major things that we have pretty good evidence cause sporadic key. That is meteors, violent electrical storms, and wind shear. But I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. When I give the lectures on this, I oftentimes say the recipe for sporadic key is the same as for chili. That means there's 10,000 different recipes, but they all make chili, and some of them don't even have any chili in it. So nobody knows all the recipes. We don't know all the different energy inputs that might be happening up there 100 kilometers off the roof, off the surface of the Earth, that is making it ionized enough to go all the way up and bend back. Now, obviously, the higher you go, the less often it's going to happen, because sporadic key is going to be much more prevalent on, say, 20 meters. It's going to be twice as much prevalent, twice as much often on 20 meters as it is on 10 meters. Well, why is it that we don't recognize it? Well, it's there, but we have so much good F layer, we don't realize that we may have a lot of QSOs via sporadic key on 20 meters. You can hear it for sure during field day, late at night, if there's no F layer. So over the next couple of years, we have no F layer at night on 20 meters. Go to field field day and listen at night, where we have all these people all across the country, and see if you hear S6, S7, S9 signals. F layer is 20, 30 over 9 type signals. But when you have S8, S9 type signals, that's sporadic E. And you hear it, the clouds moving. And so you can hear it on field day at night, late after the sun's gone down. And you can tell when the F layers finally drop, the signals are no longer 20 over. And you'll hear the clouds moving all night long. And there's enough hams operating field day all across the country that you can hear it there. And it's like smelling and tasting it. And you'll hear Texas and Oklahoma and Oregon and Washington and all the double hop to Florida. It's going to take 2 hops to get to Florida. F layer will do it in 1 because the elevation gives you that distance of 1,000 miles, and to get 2,000 miles, you got to bounce twice. So it's really fascinating to listen. It's one of my favorite things to do is wait for field day and get on and see if it's there. Now there are times that it doesn't show up. There are times there are no sporadic E. Last year, or this year actually, I listened for it, and the 20 meters went completely dead, and there was nothing out there, so there was no sporadic E. But when it is sporadic E on during field day at night, it is it's like 6 meters on steroids. You just have everything coming in all at one time that you can never really experience on 6. And therefore, obviously, 10 meters would have half as many openings, and then 6 will have half of that. And then 2 meters would have 1/3 of that. And then 220 would have about what? A little, it's not twice the frequency, so it wouldn't have 1/2, because that'd be 300 megs would have 1/2 of 150 megs would be the next half. So it'd be a little more common on 220, then dropping off by another half probably. Does that make sense, Kim? K6YYL, AA6DD.
Yes, and I'm glad we have this recording because, like I said, I will be able to listen to this over and over again, and lots of good information here, Will. I'm really, really enjoying this, so go ahead, AA6DD, K6YYL.
Okay, well, let me give you an example. One of the phenomenal sporadic E openings of years was actually in 1979. Was a very, very wonderful sporadic E season. During the June contest, we had, not only did we work all 50 contiguous states of the United States during the June contest. In other words, we didn't work Hawaii and Alaska, but during the entire VHF ARL contest in 1979, myself and our little club of about, I guess we had about 7 operators. They were all young college students at the time. They're old men with grandchildren today. But nevertheless, we worked all 50 states. Can you imagine that, working 50 states? We were on a mountaintop up in the Oxnard area, and it was just bedlam on 6 meters for the entire 2 days of the contest, and wonderful. And during the middle of that, the band opened on sporadic E on 2 meters as well. And for about an hour, we worked South Texas, North Texas, and that was the grid squares. When there were 4 grid squares, that was the aerial sections, and then we were working sections. So we had worked South Texas, North Texas, and Oklahoma. And we worked about, I would say, 7 or 8 QSOs in each one of those geographical areas. And then it went away. I remember hearing it because the first thing from the mountain we heard San Diego stations, who are, a good 100 air miles away from us down the coast of California, from where we were, and we heard them working Texas. And so we turned our beams. We had multiple quaggy beams that we turned on 2 meters towards the east, sort of normally with a pointing south up towards Sacramento and Northern California to San Francisco, or north that way, or south into San Diego. But here we're hearing the San Diego guys work into Texas. So we turned the beams that way, and we were like, is it coming? Is it going to move north? And it took about 20 minutes. But in about 20 minutes, the sporadic heat cloud moves, as it always does, always moving north, always following the magnetic lines of force. And so it moved north, and we started working them first South Texas, and then a little later, another 15, 20 minutes, we would work North Texas, another 10 or 15 minutes, and we're working Oklahoma. And that's always the pattern on sporadic heat, is the clouds were always moving north along the magnetic lines of force. And of course, the Earth rotates underneath it, so it always looks like it's swinging, not only going north, but it swings west as it goes north. K6YYL, AA6DD.
AA6DD, K6YYL, lots of good information here. Go ahead, you're on a roll.
Okay, very good, Kim. So let's go back to the idea of meteors can have particular residual meteors are in the summer months, okay? And these are not really listed in astronomy. But starting in about the middle of May through the middle of August, we get residual meteors. It's like I say, it's just like a dusting, a constant dusting of little bitty grains that are burning up in the upper E region of the atmosphere. So in the summer months, we have that adding energy. And one thing I should mention too, there is evidence that the more metallic material, when you have, any kind of metal, copper, aluminum, steel, iron, and there are iron meteorites. So any metallic meteorites generate a lot more ionization when they burn in the E region. So it's not the total quantity sometime of the meteorites. If you have enough of them that are made out of iron, you can get a lot of charge, a lot of energy, and a lot of ionization out of them. So that's another factor that we know is actually true with these kind of sporadic heat openings, is that not only do the meteors help us, but we have to get, what they're made out of may help us. Now, throughout the year, there are meteor showers, and instead of the normal residual meteors, which tend to go away in September, we usually don't have any in September. Also, all the way around to March, there's almost none. But in between, there are actual showers that happen that can be plotted and that you can make sense out of and look for a correlation with possible openings. There are some super showers that happen, which are actually phenomenal. And I don't know if we have enough time to go into that, Kim, or you want to do that in some other time. Go ahead.
I think we have enough time. Go ahead.
Okay. One of my, when you're on 6 meters for 55 years, and you're really on and really operating all those years, you always run into weird, phenomenal forms of propagation that nobody's ever heard before, or if they have, it's still very, very rare, and you have never heard of it before. Super showers, there was a super shower that would hit the Earth every 33 years. It was always in November, around the 16th, 17th, and 18th of November. And the year 1900, it hit the Earth. It supposedly, if you look up the newspapers printed in North America at that time, supposedly the whole sky lit up so bright in some cases they claimed they could read a newspaper. And remember, they didn't have our city lights that we have today in 1900, so it would have been an unbelievable phenomenon for everybody. everybody would have went outside and watched this thing glow all night long, as just tens of thousands of meteors were coming down every hour, just pelting the E region beyond belief. Well, obviously I wasn't born in 1900, so I wasn't there. But it did happen again in 1933, but that was really before any hams were really using 5 meter band, the previous 6 meter band, 5 meter band before World War II. And so there was very few hams on yet, though the band was growing exponentially at that time because of the new technology of super regen receivers and modulated oscillators. And so so there wasn't any really radio reports that I know of from that 1933 happening. I've never really seen anything in QSD or anywhere else about that particular meteor shower. But here again, it would be in newspapers saying that it was really, spectacular. The sky is just aglow from all these tens of thousands of meteors burning up. But come around to 1966, and I was on 6 meters. I was a neophyte. I didn't know. You could fill volumes of what I didn't know. But I came out one morning to the shack out in the garage and turned on the radio at about 8 o'clock in the morning. And the band had been totally quiet for months. We hadn't had any openings since the middle of August, and September had come and gone, and October had come and gone, and most of November had come and gone. Because remember, this is November the 16th, 17th, and 18th. And I walked out there, turned on the radio, and my God, I couldn't believe it. And this is daytime, so I can't see them. But obviously I'm hearing everything. And it sounds like exactly what I told you about looking for 20 meters sporadic heat late at night. But this is 6 meters sounding like that. So I'm hearing everywhere in North America. Every state, I can copy every state coming through. And every state in the United States can talk to every other state simultaneously, which that never happens. When you get a 6 meter opening, like I say, you're talking to Texas and Oklahoma here, and then, Colorado, and then Idaho and Oregon. And then if you get double hop, you might talk to Florida and Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, on around the Pennsylvania, stuff of that nature. That's typical, but imagine that I had a QSO during that phenomenal opening that we had a station in Texas on, one in the state of Washington, one in Florida, and one in Ohio, and we had a round table. We're all talking to each other and all hearing each other at the same time. Totally a one-in-a-lifetime experience. Totally unbelievable. Now, and they lasted all day. My voice was gone. I couldn't talk. I was young. I could talk forever back then. But 8 o'clock that night, I couldn't talk anymore and had to go off the air. So I went from 8 to 8, straight through, and my voice was gone. Like I say, I couldn't talk anymore. Now, you would think then, okay, what happened in 1999? Well, I'm afraid the trail left by the comet, these meteor bursts are created by comet trails, and these comets go around the sun and shoot back out, and then the Earth goes through those trails. The fact is the trails can be above or below the Earth as we orbit the sun. And every so often they're on a different angle and you miss them. Now, add 33 to 1999, and whatever year that is, it may come back again. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be around. I hope you're there, Kim. You can do the calculation and let me know when you're on November the 16th, 17th, and 18th, whatever 1999 plus 33 years adds up to. Go ahead.
Okay, very good. I'll definitely, I hope I'm around still then. Definitely, I hope. So, oh boy, yeah, I'll be definitely Well, okay, we won't talk about that. But hopefully I'm still around. AA6DD and K6YYL. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, that should be 2032. So in 2032, November the 16th, 17th, and 18th, if I'm still alive, I like that song. Have you ever heard the song in 2025, If I'm Still Alive?
I don't think so. Go ahead.
Okay. No, it's one of my favorites. It's a weird song, so I won't try to repeat it, but it has the same refrain over and over again. It keeps changing the years, but it's always with an even, like 2025. And of course, the song was written back in the 1980s or something. so I'm sure whoever wrote the song is not going to make it to 2025. All right. Any questions you can think of right offhand there, Kim? Go ahead.
Let's see. I don't think so. I don't think so at the moment. I will definitely think about a question here before we go. AA6DD, K6YYL, and I am, yeah, I don't have anything right now. Go ahead.
Okay, let's try to make a mental picture of this E is proportional to F and how it affects things. Let's say, for example, we have an E cloud that is sitting between Arizona and New Mexico, right on the border, straight up, 100 kilometers in the air. And it's ionized enough that it can bend back 10 meters from Phoenix, Arizona to Albuquerque, New Mexico. All right? So what does that tell you might happen on 6 meters?
Well, go ahead.
Well, if it's bending that short, in other words, the skip distance is only 500 miles or so, that means that same cloud, because E is proportional to frequency, will bend back twice the distance at twice the frequency. So that means 6 meters is going to bend back and fall into Texas or Oklahoma coming off that same cloud. And it's an absolute fact. It always works that way. The problem is to hear it and to know that it's happening. And I've used that technique to actually tell when band openings happen. The difficulty is, if you're on 10 meters, you may not be hearing here in Southern California the Arizona or New Mexico signal, and may not know that they're working each other. If you know they're working each other, then it's a shoe-in, because you know that cloud where it's sitting is going to get you into Texas, and then as it goes further north, it'll get you into Oklahoma, and so forth and so on. And you can see that it's even straight up and straight down. If you went down to like 20 meters and you were right there on the border, my goodness, someplace just below 20 meters, you could send a signal straight up. You would hit the E cloud and come straight down, and you would see it like a radar signal. But the time frame would be very, very short. It's a fraction of a second. So you'd have to have something that would go in the receive transmit very, very rapid to be a radar pulse to actually measure the fact that that cloud was there. But it would actually turn 20 meters directly around and shove it back right down to the earth, because it's so ionized at that frequency. It would be that short of a skip distance that it would be what we call vertical index frequency. Go ahead.
AA6DD, K6YYL. Okay, we have at least 10 minutes here. Go ahead.
Okay. Gee, we've had a long, wonderful time here, Kim. Let me see if I can think of some more interesting examples. Something that happens in the summer months that is, because we have so much more meteors activity and so much more violent electrical storms that help generate sporadic E, we get multiple clouds at various distances. And so you can hit one cloud and jump 1,000 miles. And generally speaking, remember, sporadic E clouds can do everything from straight up and straight down, which is very, very rare, all the way out to 1,400 miles. So the maximum reach of a sporadic E cloud is 1,400 miles. It's because of the limited elevation. Its only elevation is 100 kilometers, and it can't reach out further than that. But to get into the cloud, you have to get up off the ground. In other words, the higher your antenna is off the ground, the more it can see over the horizon. And you must at least get it off of the surrounded buildings and surrounding material to get a reasonable launch angle. And secondly, the launch angle is best if it's low to be actually vertically polarized, because it'll launch closer to the horizon that way. Now, if you've got a tower that's 100 feet tall, won't make too much difference whether you're vertical or horizontally polarized. But if you're only 33 feet tall, it can make all the difference in the world to have an antenna that is vertically polarized, shooting that energy as low as possible on the horizon to hit the ionization as low as possible. If you have to hit the ionization at a higher angle, it won't be ionized enough to bend it back to Earth. The higher the angle you look at it at, the less ionization you see. So that's the problem with antennas that are close to the ground when you're trying to work sporadic E. And that's true on each and every band. The more sporadic E you want, the higher you need to get the antenna, and it's at least above the surrounding garbage. You know, you can kind of see through trees all right, but buildings and other things that are in the way, you know, you got to get above them. You got to get above that. Now we all know if you're in Texas, it's a whole other story. Because they have sporadic E, a single hop, 360 degrees all the way around them. So they get to cheat a whole bunch. But for us poor humans on the other, in the East Coast or West Coast, we really do need to get it up so we can get that launch. And of course, you can get the double hops that way. And then you can get even triple hops, and even more and more and more hops. I'm not sure if it was F layer. I don't think you've been able to do it just yet. Did you hear him? Did you hear the Alaska station on sporadic E this summer when we worked him there, Kim?
On 6 meters then?
Roger.
I'll have to think about that one. At the moment, I don't know. I'll have to think about that one. Maybe.
All right. Yeah, we worked KL7NO this summer on sporadic E, and that was double hop. Takes 2 hops. The first hop lands off the coast of the state of Washington. The next hop lands in Alaska, where Al K7NO operates. Wonderful operator. Has been on there for years and years and years. He's been on there for as many years as I have. And I've worked him almost every summer. And it's always in late evening. Usually around 10 o'clock is when Alaska comes through. And then if you wait, and you've had real good openings into double hop into Alaska, at about midnight here, we get 4 or 5 or 6 hops all the way into Japan. And it takes all the antlers and all the power you can muster to get in there, because each one of these hops are draining the signal level. And sporadic E is an extremely weak mode. It has lots of loss in it. It is 40 dBs weaker. Just a single hop is 40 dBs weaker than F layer. F layer, you can get away with a lot of sin, because the F layer will let you communicate with anything, an antenna buried in the backyard. But that's not true on sporadic E. It's a weak mode. You need all the power, all the antlers as high as possible, and take advantage of what you've got. Kim works a lot of it and works well. She just has a 5/8 over 5/8 vertical up, only 30 feet in the air, but because it's vertical and it has 6 dBs of omni gain, she's worked double hop on 6 meters as well as single hop. How many states have you worked so far, Kim? Do you know?
I don't know. I definitely have to go over my logbook for that one.
Well, would you say it's about, what, at least 15?
Maybe more.
Yeah, I know you at least 15, probably half of them. You probably worked maybe 25 states all total by now. So that wouldn't surprise me in the least. And that's with 100 watts. And that's a very modest station to do all that on. But Kim is an extraordinary operator, and that's what it takes as well. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. Well, I have a lot of, patience.
Oh, that's what it takes. You have to have the patience of the saint to operate on 6 meters. If you want instant gratification, don't try to work sporadic E. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what you need. Okay, well, any last parting shots?
No, a lot of fun as usual. Merry Christmas. I think we'll have to go outside and see if we can see a red glow in the sky. It might be Aurora in the jet stream or Rudolph.
That's right.
That's right. K6YYL 73, AA6DD.
Okay, Will, and I will talk to you soon. AA6DD, K6YYL. Thank you very much, Will, and 73.